In this video, I brought back dads of current NFL players to play with their sons. We finally have a use for all the old head face scans they give us. Is that a spray-on hairline? Bro, he got that Carlos Boozer. You know, Father's Day just passed a few weeks ago. Shout out to all my subscribers that are dads. And I wanted to do something for the NFL dads. So I figured we should bring some back. And also, we've seen Bronny James about to play with LeBron. So that as well inspired this video. Now we have some rules to get to. Now, not every NFL player that has a dad that played in the league will have their dad come back, okay? They have to have been in Madden 99 or later, so we can use their actual ratings, okay? I didn't want to make any ratings. It wouldn't be fair to the other guys that we use their actual ratings. So, guys like George Adams, who is Jamal Adams' dad, John Bosa, who's Joey and Nick's dad, even Jim Burrow, who's Joe Burrow's dad, they're not going to be in the game, because they played way before Madden 99 and I don't have their actual rating. Now, even if they are in Madden 99 or later, their son has to currently be in the league and on an NFL team. I use Wikipedia's list of second generation NFL players. They have a good amount of them, you know, currently in the league. They don't have the 2024 draft. So we also had to go to Google and I clicked on a ton of articles to see, you know, the list of dads of current NFL players. I got some names that weren't in the Wikipedia article. So I try to do my best to make sure I have almost everyone. If I missed one or two, my apologies. And finally, the dads must be a starter no matter what their overall is, no matter who else is at their position, they have to start. First up, we have the Browns, okay? Orlando Brown Jr. currently on the Bengals. So his father, Orlando Brown Sr., who was an 86 overall right tackle from Madden 06, is gonna join him on that Cincinnati O-line. And now, him and his son will be protecting Joe Burrow. Next up, we have the Bushes, the black version. Devin Bush Sr. as strong safety. He was a 78 overall in Madden 01. He's gonna join his son, Devin Bush Jr. in Cleveland. You have Mario Edwards Sr., who was an 83 overall cornerback in Madden 05. And his son, Mario Edwards Jr. is on the Texans. So that's where we have them. Now we're looking at the Ellises. УOther has 3 sons in the NFL right now. He was a 92 overall D tackle in Madden 02. And oh yeah, if I haven't mentioned it yet, MaddenRatings.weebly.com, that's where we're getting these ratings from. I got each of these dads highest overall in any Madden they were featured in. He's going to join the Falcons to play with his son Caden, who's an MLB for them. He's also going to join the Patriots at the same overall to play with his son Christian, who's an outside linebacker for them. And he also joined the Broncos to play with his son Jonah, who's an outside linebacker for them. Next, we have the Hex. Andy was a 76 overall left tackle from Madden 01. His son Charlie is a left tackle as well for the Texans. Craig Hayward has 2 sons in the league right now. He was a 75 overall fullback in Madden 99. He has his son Connor that plays tight end for the Steelers. And Cameron Hayward, who plays right end for Pittsburgh. On to the Hodgins. You have James, who was a fullback, a 91 overall, back in Madden 05. And his son Isaiah is playing for the Giants, so we had to put him in New York. As for the Horns, Joe was a 93 overall wide receiver back in Madden 06. And he's gonna join his son J.C. Horn in Carolina. Van Jefferson has a dad with the same exact name, but he goes by Sean, okay? He was an 83 overall wide receiver back in Madden 2000. So now the Steelers have 2 Van Jeffersons on their wide receiver core. Now we're looking at a Robert Jones, 81 overall right outside linebacker from Madden 01. He's the father of Zay Jones, the wide receiver for Arizona. So we had to put them on the Cardinals. Looking at the McCaffreys next, we have Ed, the 91 overall wide receiver from Madden 01. Of course, we had to put him in San Fran to play with Christian, but we also had to put him in Washington to play with his son Luke. So there are now 2 Ed McCaffreys in the league. Speaking of the number 2, can we get maybe 2,000 likes? I feel like we could do that. Maybe not, but hey, I like being ambitious. We're looking at the Metcalfs next. Terrence was an 84 overall right guard in Madden 07. So he's gonna join his son DK in Seattle. Next up, we're headed to Indianapolis, looking at Michael Pittman Sr., who was an 83 overall in Madden 07. He joins his son Michael Pittman Jr. on that Indy offense. He's gonna start ahead of Jonathan Taylor. Now we have a 97 overall Joey Porter Sr. from Madden 07. He's gonna join that Pittsburgh front seven. And his son, Joey Porter Jr. That defense gets even better. New England already added Luther Ellis to play with his son. Now they're gonna add Monte Rieger to play with his son. He was an 83 overall D tackle in Madden 07. So now that D tackle core looking nasty. And Jalen gets to play with his dad. We're going to New York for this one. Jon Runyan Sr. 93 overall right tackle from Madden 02. Former Philadelphia Eagles. So this one is a little weird. I remember watching him, but now he's gonna play with his son in New York. Jon Runyan Jr. on that Giants O-line. The Chargers cornerback core just got a lot better. Asante Samuel Sr. 96 overall cornerback from Madden 09. Joins his son Asante Samuel Jr. to form a very formidable CB duo. But they're not the only father-sons that played the same position. Irv Smith Sr. was a 75 overall tight end in Madden 2000. He's gonna join his son Irv Smith Jr. in Kansas City. He'll start ahead of Travis Kelce for the defending champion Chiefs. But this might be the best father-son duo we've seen so far. Patrick Surtain, the first, was a 96 overall cornerback in Madden 04. So him and his son, both in Denver now. Probably the best CB duo in the league. I think this is the first father-son duo that doesn't share the same last name. You have Jesse Tuggle, who was an 88 overall MLB in Madden 01. He's gonna join his son, Brady Jarrett, on the Atlanta Falcons. Yes, they are father and son, and ATL gets even better. However, so does their division rival, the New Orleans Saints. Cedric Wilson Sr. was a 79 overall wide receiver from Madden 06. He's gonna join his son, Cedric Wilson Jr. in that New Orleans wide receiver core. Another upgrade in the NFC South, this time the Buccaneers. They get Antoine Winfield Sr., a 93 overall cornerback from Madden 06. He's gonna join his son, Antoine Winfield Jr. And that secondary is looking good. And they're gonna need to be very good to stop this Falcons offense. Bruce Matthews, he played everywhere on the offensive line, but in the later 90s, you know, near the tail end of his prime, his highest overall was 90 at left guard in Madden 02. So he's gonna join that Falcons O-line to play with his son Jake. And ATL gets yet another upgrade. Next up, we're headed to Arizona, looking at Marvin Harrison Sr., 99 overall wide receiver from Madden 04. He, of course, is gonna play with his son Marvin Harrison Jr. And Kyler's wide receiver core just got a lot better. Now we're looking at Buffalo, okay? Frank Gore Sr., 93 overall running back from Madden 09. He joins his son Frank Gore Jr., who's also on the Bills. But will they have enough to get past the Chargers? Jerry Rice is back in the league, 99 overall wide receiver from Madden 99. He joins his son, Brendan Rice, who is also in Los Angeles. Herbert has a new #1. Now we're looking at another AFC team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Chris Jenkins Sr. was a 98 overall D tackle in Madden 05. He's gonna join his son, Chris Jenkins Jr. on that Bengals D-line. I haven't seen a linebacker be as good as him in all my years of watching the Eagles. Jeremiah Trotter Sr. back in Philadelphia, 93 overall MLB from Madden 07. He's gonna join his son, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. However, Cincinnati gets another improvement. This time it's Kwame Lassiter at free safety. He was a 92 overall in Madden 03. And no, his son is not Kamari Lassiter. Even though they share the same last name, his son's actually Kwame Lassiter II. Wide receiver for the Bengals. But while we're on the topic of wide receivers, let's talk about this 99 overall Terrell Owens from Madden 04. He joins his son, Tariq Owens, who is also in San Francisco. So they add Ed McCaffrey and T.O. to that offense. They might be the favorite so far. Again, we're not going to have Joe Alt and his father, John. Since John is not in Madden 99 or later, we don't know his actual ratings. Same for Cameron Jordan and his father, Steve, for the exact same reason. And then no Edmonds, even though you have Tremaine, Terrell, Trey. Their father, Farrell, played way before Madden 99, so we don't have his ratings either. And then there are probably a bunch of other guys that are free agents, or of course, you know, they're dead. We don't have their real ratings. So don't ask why they're not in the video in the comment section. You know why. I wanted to repeat it so you guys know. Anywho, we have two two more dads left. Abram Elam was a 79 overall strong safety in Madden 13. His son Khair Elam is on Buffalo, so he joins that secondary. And we're staying in the secondary for our final father-son duo. Carnell Lake was a 93 overall free safety in Madden 01. He joins his son Quentin Lake in Los Angeles. So there you go. We did not get every single father-son duo, only the ones that met the qualifications, okay? So Jerry Rice, T.O., 299s coming back. You have guys like Chris Jenkins Sr., Joey Porter Sr., Asante Samuel Sr., Patrick Surtain the first. So many great additions to a lot of teams around the league. Now, not every team got an addition, but not every team needed it, okay? Who's gonna win? Will it be a team that didn't add a father-son duo, or will it be a team that did? Let me know your predictions. All right, we're gonna sim to the playoffs, man. Hopefully, a bunch of teams that we added dads to end up making it far. My prediction, NFC, I gotta go with the Niners. You add Ed McCaffrey, Terrell Owens to your wide receiver core. I don't know how you stop that team, okay? AFC might go a little bit out of left field, okay? We gotta go with the Chargers. They add Jerry Rice, the best to ever do it. Not to mention Asante Samuel Sr. on defense. That's gonna be a very well-rounded team, man. Let's see what happens. Subscribe if you're new and you want to see more videos like this, man. AFC, we have the Chiefs, Bengals, Ravens, Texans, Bills, Dolphins, and Browns. The Chargers didn't make it. They go 6-11. So my AFC pick does not end up in the playoffs.
Broncos.
With 2 Surtains, go 4-13. Steelers with 2 Joey Porters. Patriots, I think they had Luther Ellis. Also Monte Rieger on that D-line. Colts with 2 Michael Pittmans didn't make it. Now in the NFC, the Cowboys get the 1 seed. Niners 12-5. Bucks, Eagles, Falcons, Cardinals, and Packers all make it. Gotta feel bad for Seattle. 9-8 with the 2 Metcalfs, and they still don't get in. Look at Marvin Harrison's helping the Cardinals make the playoffs. The Bucks with 2 Winfields, of course. Niners, I thought they would make it. Eagles, 2 Jeremiah Trotters. Panthers with the Horns. The Rams with the Lakes. Commanders with the McCaffreys. And the Giants with the Runyons do not make it to the postseason. Orlando Brown Sr. allowed 6 less sacks than his son in Cincinnati. Joey Porter Sr. had 4 less tackles than his son, but he had 21 tackles for a loss, most in Pittsburgh. He also had the most sacks with 11.5 and a forced fumble. Mario Edwards Sr. 2 interceptions, 8 pass deflections, 86 tackles. His son didn't really play that much, unfortunately. Luther Ellis, 14 tackles for a loss, most in Atlanta, 3 sacks, 61 tackles. His son Caden had the second most tackles on the team, 3 sacks and an interception, along with 10 tackles for a loss. Jesse Tuggle, most tackles on the Falcons with 131. He had a sack, 2 interceptions, 12 deflections, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. Should be in the running for best linebacker. His son Grady Jarrett, 12 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks, forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Bruce Matthews allowed 5 sacks all season. His son Jake allowed 12. Charlie Heck allowed 0 sacks. However, his father Andy allowed 9 sacks. Craig Hayward only had 1 rushing attempt, but he helped Najee Harris rush for 1,000 yards and 16 rushing touchdowns. His son Connor only got 2 catches, but he did have a touchdown. And his other son Cameron had 7 sacks, good for 3rd in Pittsburgh. James Hodgins, 4 rushing touchdowns on 13 carries. His son didn't get any receptions though. Joe Horn, 900 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns, and 74 receptions for the Panthers. J.C. Horn, his son, had 3 interceptions, most in Carolina, 8 deflections, a forced fumble, and a recovery. Sean Jefferson Sr., 963 yards receiving, most in Pittsburgh. He also led them with 83 receptions. He had 4 receiving touchdowns. His son didn't get any receptions though. Robert Jones, 67 tackles, 11 tackles for a loss, 4 sacks, 3 deflections, and a forced fumble along with a recovery. His son was 3rd on the Cardinals with 815 receiving yards, 68 receptions, 4 receiving touchdowns. That's because the Harrisons almost had 2,000-yard receivers from that duo. Marvin Harrison Jr., 998 receiving yards. Senior, 1,255. He had 12 touchdowns. Meanwhile, in San Fran, Purdy spread the ball around really well. Ed McCaffrey, 66 for 802 and 4 touchdowns. 1 more than his son Christian. And then you had Terrell Owens, 67 for 820 and 6 touchdowns. His son Tariq didn't get any catches. McCaffrey's son Christian had 1,731 yards along with 19 rushing touchdowns. And then the other Ed McCaffrey in Washington, 95 for 1250 and 12 receiving touchdowns. He had to carry more of a load on this receiving core. His son Luke didn't get any catches. Terrence Metcalf only allowed 1 sack the entire season in Seattle. His son DK had the most receptions and the second most receiving yards, along with the second most receiving touchdowns. Michael Pittman Sr., 1,229 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, and the Colts were one of the best rushing teams in the league. Michael Pittman Jr., his son, 61 for 781 and 2 touchdowns. Monte Rager, 12 tackles for a loss, second most in New England, 1.5 sacks, a pass deflection. His son unfortunately didn't get much playing time. John Runyon Jr. allowed 1 sack all season. His dad, John Runyon Sr., allowed 6. Asante Samuel Sr. tied for the most interceptions on the Chargers with 2. His son didn't get any, but he had half a sack, 5 deflections, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Meanwhile, Sr. had 70 tackles, 6 pass deflections, and a forced fumble. Still surprised they didn't make the playoffs. Irv Smith Sr., 103 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 11 touchdowns. Kelsey added 2, even as the backup, and then Irv Smith Jr. didn't get much playing time. Patrick Surtain II, 3 interceptions, 8 deflections, tackle for a loss. His dad, 2 interceptions, a tackle for a loss, 20 more tackles than his son. He had a pass deflection, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Cedric Wilson Sr., second most receptions, yards, and third most receiving touchdowns for the Saints. His son had 7 for 76. The Winfields combined for 7 interceptions in Tampa Bay. Sr. had a sack, pass deflection, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. His son Jr. had a deflection and a forced fumble as well. Frank Gore Sr., 1,368 yards, 15 rushing touchdowns. His son rushed for 11 yards on 4 carries. Jerry Rice was not the leading receiver in Los Angeles, 72 for 886 and 6 receiving touchdowns. Wow, I'm actually pretty shocked. Then again, sometimes slot wide receivers have just insane stats, so that might be what it was. Brendan didn't get much playing time. Chris Jenkins Sr., most tackles for a loss in Cincy with 16. He also had 4.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. His son didn't record any stats though. Most tackles on the Eagles, Jeremiah Trotter Sr. with 132. That might be the most we've seen so far. 4 tackles for a loss, 4.5 sacks, 10 deflections, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. As expected, his son didn't play that much. Kwame Lassiter the first had 1 interception for the Bengals, 6 deflections, and a forced fumble. His son unfortunately didn't play much. Abram Elam, 1 interception for the Bills, 2 tackles for a loss, 6 deflections. His son Khair had 8 tackles. And then finally, Quentin Lake had 4 interceptions, 3 tackles for a loss, 4 deflections. His pops, Carnell Lake, had 1 INT, half a sack, a deflection, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. All right, let's look at the league leaders. Now that all the dads were added into the game, Mahomes led the way with 4,600 yards passing. Prescott, Burrow, Tua, Rodgers, rounding out the top 5. We didn't add any quarterbacks, I don't think. So yeah, these are all guys that were already starting. Drake May, least amount of passing yards with 2,900. Tua had the most passing touchdowns with 40. Mahomes, Burrow, Prescott, and Rodgers, rounding out the top 5. On to rushing, McCaffrey, one of the father-son duos, led a stat category. Derrick Henry, Jacobs, Mixon, Saquon, Frank Gore Sr. right outside the top 5. You also have Michael Pittman Sr. hovering around that top 15-ish. So good season from them. A lot of guys rushed for over 1,000 yards. Most rushing touchdowns, McCaffrey and Barkley tied with 19. Frank Gore Sr. not too far behind with 15. CeeDee Lamb, most receiving yards. Tyreek, Keenan, Olave, Marvin Harrison Sr. rounding out the top 5. Ed McCaffrey at 6. Not too shabby at all. Let's see where the other dads landed. Irv Smith Sr., the tight end, 1,000 yards. More than guys like Devontae, Jamar Chase. Unbelievable, man. Marvin Harrison Jr. So that duo was extremely productive for the Cardinals. Big reason why they end up making it into the playoffs. Sean Jefferson represented for that father-son duo. How about receptions? Irv Smith Sr. had the most in the league. In Kansas City, Jefferson, CeeDee, Tyreek, and Ed McCaffrey at 5th, tied with Romeo Doubs. Wow. The dad showing out. Sean Jefferson not too far behind with 83. More than guys like Cooper Kupp and Jamar. Keenan, most touchdowns though, with 17. Dotson with 14. Odell, Amon-Ra, Burton. And then Ed McCaffrey tied for 5th. Marvin Harrison Sr. right there. Irv Smith Sr. also. Look at these old heads balling, man. You love to see it. On defense, most tackles went to Kenneth Murray. Then you have Wagner, Ed Edmonds. Still feel bad we couldn't get his dad, but hey, I could not make up stats, man. You guys would crucify me even more. Jeremiah Trotter Sr., along with Jesse Tuggle, both in the top 10, representing for their father-son duo. Tackles for a loss, you had Quinnen, Myles Garrett. Joey Porter Sr. was a menace, top 5 in the entire league. Oh, Luther Ellis, yes sir, 15 tackles for a loss. There you go, not bad at all. What about sacks? Michael Parsons, most in the league. Ben Hutchinson, Chris Jones, Crosby, Khalil Mack. Joey Porter Sr. again, up there, man. Remember, he had more than TJ freaking Watt. Most interceptions, Darius Williams. Quentin Lake, along with Antoine Winfield Jr., the Suns, making their dads proud. Look at Devin Bush Sr., tied for the second most INTs in the league. Not bad at all. JC Horn making his dad proud, 3 INTs. Look at that. Jesse Tuggle tied with Demario and Vaughn. And Jeremiah Trotter Sr., most forced fumbles in the league. MVP's gonna go to Mahomes though. Prescott and Lamar round out the top 3. No dads in the top 10, unfortunately. And it makes sense. We didn't have any quarterbacks, okay? OPOY, Mahomes. Frank Gore at 4th. DPOY goes to Vaughn. We had Joey Porter Sr. at 6th. OPOY goes to Christian McCaffrey in the NFC. His dad, Ed, got 7th, one of the Commanders. And then Marvin Harrison Sr. got 8th. DPOY goes to Parsons. Best QB goes to Dak. Best running back, McCaffrey. Best wide receiver, Keenan. Ed McCaffrey ends up 2nd. Marvin Harrison Sr. ends up 4th. Best O-lineman, Zach Martin. Terrence Metcalf finishes 4th. Best D-lineman, Parsons. Chris Braswell wins best linebacker. Jeremiah Trotter Sr. finishes 6th. Caden Ellis finishes 9th, making his dad proud. Darius Williams, best DB. Antoine Winfield Jr. and Sr. in the top 10. Quentin Lake also in the top 10, along with JC Horn. Best QB in the AFC, Mahomes. Best running back, Pacheco. Frank Gore Sr. right behind him. Best wide receiver, Odell. Best O-lineman, Wyatt Teller. Best D-lineman, Chris Jones. Best linebacker, Matthew Judon. Joey Porter Sr. right behind him at 2nd. Best DB, Martin Emerson. Devin Bush Sr. at 3rd. So now we look at the playoff bracket. We have the Chiefs and the Cowboys with the 1 seeds. There's still like 9 or 10 of these teams that have a dad on them. So at least a few of them are going to move on to the final 8. We'll see if any of them can get to the final 4. In the wild card round, the Bengals beat the Browns, sending the Bushes home. The Niners take care of the Cardinals, sending the Harrisons home. The Texans lose to the Dolphins, so the Hex season ends there. The Buccaneers with the Winfields get the W over the Falcons, 35-14. Remember, ATL had the Ellises, Bruce and Jake Matthews, Jared and Jesse Tuggle. Credit to Tampa Bay. Then we had the Ravens beating the Bills. Baltimore did not add any fathers, remember, but Buffalo had Frank Gore Sr. and Jr. along with the Elams, but it still was not enough. And then Jeremiah Trotter Sr. and Jr. and the Philadelphia Eagles lose to the Packers, who did not add any fathers. And then Green Bay lost to the Cowboys 11-21. Kansas City with the Irv Smiths take care of the Dolphins. Baltimore keeps on winning 21-14 over the Bengals. The Orlando Browns, the Chris Jenkins, and the Kwame Lassiters are all being sent home. But the Niners took care of business against the Buccaneers. So the Antoine Winfields get to the divisional round. They end up losing. And now we have our final 4. 2 of our teams we added fathers to. That would be the Chiefs and the Niners. The Cowboys and Ravens trying to prevent a father-son duo matchup in the Super Bowl. In the rematch of last year's AFC Championship game, Lamar Jackson was poised to make this one have a different outcome. First possession, he finds Nelson Aguilar to get them in the field goal range. Baltimore ends up scoring first with a Justin Tucker field goal, but then they get an interception. Odafe away, picking off Patrick Mahomes. Rare INT from the Chiefs quarterback, and the Baltimore Ravens were going to capitalize immediately. Derrick Henry out the backfield, getting them back into field goal range. And eventually Lamar Jackson would cap it off with his first touchdown pass of the game. Zay Flowers making up for his mistake he had in real life, extending the Ravens lead. It was a very rough outing for Irv Smith Sr. and Jr. They could not get open in time. Mahomes was getting sacked. Constant pressure from the Ravens. And believe it or not, there are no highlights for the Chiefs. Not 1 point was scored by Kansas City. Van Noy with the icing on the cake. The final sack. Baltimore shuts out the Chiefs 19-0. Getting revenge for last year's AFC Championship game. Mahomes with a 41.9 pass rating, 1 INT, no touchdowns. Baltimore didn't do much on offense, but they really didn't have to. Their defense was just dominant. Irv Smith Sr. 2 for 33, but But now we're down to one team that has at least one father-son duo left. Quick reminder, the Niners have the McCaffreys, Christian and Ed, along with the Owens, Terrell and Tariq. Christian gets them off to a very nice start, man. 41 yards on that one, gets them inside the 30. Not too long after, Brock Purdy's gonna connect with his tight end, George Kittle, for the first score of the game. Niners up 7 early. This one actually got off to a rough start for the Cowboys. Dak Prescott was struggling to get going. Bosa with the sack right there. Niners would end up getting a field goal on their next possession, making it 10-0. And then one of the dads decided to step up and make a huge play. Purdy getting hit as he throws it. Ed McCaffrey off to the races, taking it to the crib. Niners up 17-0 at one point. But Dallas was not going to go away that easily. Dak Prescott with some good protection. Find the wide open Brandon Cooks. Outrunning Hufanga. Cowboys make it 17-7. And then their defense started making plays, getting after the quarterback. Time and time again, Parsons with his first sack of the game. That led to a Cowboys field goal. So we start half number 2 with the Cowboys down 17-10. And Purdy continues to go down, man. They just kept on sacking him. This time the Cowboys are going to tie it up at 17 after Dak finds Tolbert in the end zone. And I promise this is not deja vu, okay? This time it's DeMarcus Lawrence getting to Purdy. There were 6 sacks on Brock in this one. Cowboys get a field goal. And I know, this is all we're showing from the Niners because that's all that was happening in half number 2. Parsons again. San Fran was up 17-0, but it all fell apart in half number 2. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Cowboys were scoring on almost every single possession. Dak to Cooks again, getting them inside the 20. And then eventually he finds his #1 wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, in the end zone. And I don't know what else to do. I'm just showing you what happened, okay? Another sack. Parsons and D-Law wreaking havoc. 4th down and long. Last chance for Brock in this offense. It ends up going incomplete, intended for Brandon Ayuk. All those guys with abilities. The McCaffreys and the Owens. And somehow the Cowboys still beat them. 30-17. Final score. Dak played really well. After quarter number 1, Zeke did his thing. 6.5 yards a carry. McCaffrey had 9.5. Don't know why they didn't go to him more, especially with Brock getting sacked over and over. Ed McCaffrey, 5 for 100 and a touchdown. T only had 1 catch for 7 yards. Brock probably should have just thrown it up a few plays and just let him go get it. But now, all of our father-son duos are kicked out of the playoffs. Here's a recap of the season. The Ravens end up winning the Super Bowl 17-14 over Dallas. Super Bowl MVP Odafe away. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.